Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive, where we, as always, we dig into some really cool stuff.
That's right.
And today we are going to be diving into Advanced Conversational Hypnosis.
ACH.
ACH, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is that it claims to be able to do hypnotherapy that would normally take multiple sessions in just one.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
And the source material we have is a training guide
okay.
for ACH practitioners.
Interesting.
This is not like your typical hypnotherapy.
No, really isn't.
Kind of a manual, right?
Yeah.
It's very different.
It's like throwing out all the old wisdom.
Yeah, and starting
From scratch.
from scratch.
And the author is very upfront about their skepticism of traditional hypnotherapy methods.
Yeah, they're all about results, like observable results.
Yeah.
Forget the theory.
Good.
Just show me it works.
I like that.
Yeah.
So one of the most interesting things that I saw in here was this concept of unconscious to conscious conclusions and symptoms,
Right.
which sounds very complicated.
It sounds very complex.
But it seems like that is kind of the key.
It's the core.
Yeah, to how this works. So what is the bottom line with that? How does that actually work in practice?
So think about it like this. You have a cough, right? And you go to the doctor.
Okay.
The traditional approach might be to just try and get rid of the cough.
Suppress the symptom?
Yeah, suppress the symptom without actually investigating what's causing it.
Right, so it could be like an infection.
Exactly like an infection.
Or something.
Right, so they're treating the symptom, not the root cause.
Got it.
And the guide argues that a lot of traditional hypnotherapy approaches kind of do the same thing.
Oh, so they're just dealing with like the surface level problem.
They're just dealing with what the client comes in with.
But not the underlying.
Which may be just a symptom of something deeper.
Oh.
Right?
Deeper in the unconscious mind.
In the unconscious mind.
Okay, so that's where ACH comes in.
That's where ACH comes in.
Yeah.
ACH tries to uncover and address that root cause.
By going into the unconscious.
By going right to the source.
I like it.
Right in the unconscious mind.
So the training guide actually gives a really interesting breakdown of how this unconscious to conscious thing unfolds during a session.
Right. They call it untying the knot.
Okay.
And it starts with the investigation phase.
Mm-hmm.
So the therapist asks very specific types of questions.
To figure out what is the root cause.
Designed to figure out what is the root cause of the issue.
That's cool. And they even say in here that they use the what, when, who, why, how questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like a detective.
Exactly.
It's like a detective story.
It's like a detective and a witness working together to try and piece together a crime.
Yeah.
Right? So the detective, the ACH practitioner, asks the right questions.
To the witness.
To guide the witness, the client, to access those hidden memories.
Yeah.
And make connections that they might not have seen before.
That's a great analogy. I like that. And it seems like they're not just trying to put the client into a trance. They're just like, they're asking questions and then the trance kind of...
It emerges naturally as a result, so it's not forced on the client.
The trance is like a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the process.
Of accessing that material.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's crazy.
And it makes the client much more receptive to new insights and suggestions.
It's like traditional hypnotherapy has it backwards.
Yeah.
You try to put you in a trance and then get the information.
Right.
But this is like...
The other way around.
You get the information and it puts you into a trance.
Exactly.
That's a mind bender.
The source material even refers to it as a byproduct.
That's cool.
Of the therapeutic process, not the primary goal.
So what is the main focus then? If it's not the trance, what is the main?
The main focus is identifying and untying those unconscious knots that are causing the issue.
So it's not just treating the symptom, it's figuring out, like, why is this symptom even happening?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And they even have a specific timeline for an ACH session.
They do.
Which is interesting because it's all supposed to happen in one go.
Yeah, it goes from investigation to identifying the knots, fostering insight and trance, testing the new insights, and then integration.
Wow.
All in one session.
So this is interesting because they're very critical of traditional techniques like using scripts and predetermined timelines. They call them guesses at best.
Right.
But this seems pretty structured and methodical, wouldn't you say?
It does seem very structured and methodical. They have a roadmap, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the emphasis is still on tailoring the approach
to the
individual's unique unconscious processes.
So how do they actually guide the client to untie those knots once they've been identified? Like, how does that, what's the next step in this one session journey?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, can't wait. We'll be right back.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've talked about how ACH practitioners investigate the client's unconscious and how they pinpoint those metaphorical knots.
Right, like how do they know what to look for?
Right.
And then how do they actually help the client to, untie them to create real change
Right.
within that single session?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, and the guide calls the next stage fostering insight and trance. What does that mean?
Well, it's not about the therapist offering solutions
Okay.
or giving advice. It's about guiding the client towards their own aha moments.
They have a really interesting analogy in here.
Okay.
It's like a detective and witness working together to piece together a crime.
Oh, okay.
So the detective, the ACH practitioner, asks the right questions to help the witness, the client, to access hidden memories and make connections they might not have seen before.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights the collaborative nature
Yeah.
of ACH.
Like a partnership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
The therapist isn't this all-knowing guru. Right.
Dictating what the client should think or feel.
Right.
They're a facilitator. They're a guide.
A guide.
Helping the client tap into their own inner wisdom.
And the guide even suggests that just like the act of recalling those forgotten experiences, those conclusions, as they call them,
Right.
can be like incredibly powerful in itself.
Right. It brings it to the surface, right?
Yeah.
From the unconscious to the conscious.
Into the conscious mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the client can start to see, oh, that's how it's been influencing my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Oh, so it's like shining a light on it.
Exactly. Shining a light on those hidden knots, making them visible.
So you can untie them.
So they can be untied.
I like it. And this is where the trance part comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're already in this heightened state of awareness
That's right.
from doing all this deep inner exploration.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes the trance isn't something that the therapist forces.
Right. Upon the client, it emerges organically as the client goes deeper.
So the trance is like a byproduct
It's a natural byproduct
of this self-discovery.
of the process
Yeah.
of accessing that unconscious material.
So it's not like they're trying to put the client to sleep or anything?
No, not at all.
Right,
It's about guiding them into a state of focused attention.
Okay.
Where they're more open to new perspectives, more open to challenging their old beliefs.
So then once the client has these insights, these aha moments,
Right.
how does the practitioner actually help them translate those realizations into lasting change?
So the guide calls this stage testing new insights.
Okay.
So it's all about taking those new realizations, those new understandings for a test drive.
So it's not just enough to understand it, you have to actually experiment with
You
it.
have to actually apply it.
Yeah.
You have to experiment.
Okay.
Right? So the ACH practitioner might guide the client through various techniques to challenge those old patterns
Okay.
and try out new, more adaptive ones.
They mentioned this technique called future pacing,
Yes.
where they basically imagine themselves in future situations,
Right.
using these new
Or
insights.
it's using these new insights.
So it's like a rehearsal.
It's like a rehearsal. It's all about helping the client build confidence and rehearse these new ways of being so they become more ingrained.
Okay, but that seems like it would take a lot of time.
It does.
How do they do all this in one session?
Well, because the guide argues that because ACH addresses the root cause, you can bypass a lot of the steps that are involved in traditional therapy.
So it's like a shortcut.
Yeah, you could say that,
Yeah.
like symptom management or behavioral modification.
So you're not spending weeks or months just trying to figure out what the problem is.
Exactly.
You can actually start working on solutions
You're right.
within that one session.
And because it's such a structured and focused process,
Okay,
they argue that you can cover a lot of ground
I see.
in a single session.
Okay, but it seems like it would put a lot of pressure on both the therapist and the client
Absolutely.
to make every minute count.
It does.
Yeah.
The source material acknowledges that ACH requires a very skilled and experienced practitioner.
Right, because they have to do all this in a short period of time.
They have to very quickly
Yeah.
and sensitively guide the client through this process.
They use this phrase, surgical precision,
Yes.
when describing the therapist's role
I love that phrase.
in identifying the knots.
Yeah, it really paints a picture
Yeah.
of the level of skill
Yeah.
that's required.
So it's not just like some magical quick fix.
No, it's not a magic bullet.
Yeah,
It requires work.
on both sides.
On both sides, a willingness to delve into those patterns and challenge those long-held beliefs.
So the client has to be all in on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So are there any downsides then to this single session approach? Are there any red flags that people should watch out for?
Well, the biggest concern, I think, is Does a single session allow enough time
Yeah.
to really thoroughly address very complex issues?
Yeah, what if it's like really deep-rooted?
What if it's deep-rooted?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like tied to other things?
It might require a more gradual and nuanced approach.
Yeah, it's like trying to untangle a giant knot. You can't just like yank on the ends
Exactly
and
right.
expect it to come undone.
You can't just force it. You
Yeah.
have to work it gently,
Right.
patiently.
Hmm.
And there's also the risk that the client might feel rushed or overwhelmed.
Yeah, because it's a lot to process
It is a lot to process.
in just one afternoon.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe ACH isn't for everybody.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution,
Right.
and the source material acknowledges that.
Okay?
It emphasizes the importance of careful client selection and preparation.
So you have to make sure that they're a good fit for this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not everyone's a good fit for this.
And even if somebody has like a breakthrough during the session, doesn't lasting change require like ongoing effort
Absolutely.
and self-awareness?
The single session is just the beginning.
Right.
It's just the start.
The start of the journey.
Or the journey.
So it's like a jump start.
It's a catalyst for change,
Yeah.
but the real work happens afterwards.
So they do give them tools to keep going?
They do. The guide stresses that it's up to the client to nurture those seeds of change and allow them to grow.
So it's not just like they do the session and then they just send them off.
No, they don't just abandon them.
Yeah.
They give them tools and strategies
Okay.
to help them integrate those changes.
It's a process.
It is a process.
It's not just a one and done.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a bit better
Yeah.
about the whole single session thing. It's not like they're just trying to cram everything in.
No,
Yeah.
it's a starting point.
Yeah.
It's a powerful starting point.
You know, it's interesting to think that even if somebody is skeptical about the whole single session idea,
Right?
there's something really powerful about the idea that we can access the unconscious mind
Yeah.
and rewrite those beliefs.
It is incredibly empowering to think that we have that power within us.
It really does make you wonder, like, what we could all achieve if we could all just tap into that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it highlights the incredible potential of the human mind to heal,
Yeah.
to grow,
To transform.
to transform.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that lasting change requires addressing that root cause.
Not just the symptoms.
Not just the symptoms, exactly.
Well said. I guess the question is, if our problems are often rooted in patterns that we're not even consciously aware of, how can we become more attuned to those patterns? How can we start to shine a light on those unconscious knots?
that is the question.
Yeah.
I think we all need to explore that further.
Yeah.
And whether or not we believe in the efficacy of a single session approach, this dive into ACH has given us a lot to think about the power of the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is, and it reminds us that we have to address that root cause,
Yes.
not the surface level stuff.
Absolutely.
Well said. Well, maybe this deep dive has sparked some curiosity in some of our listeners out there.
I hope so.
Maybe you want to explore conversational hypnosis
Yeah,
or other therapeutic approaches that are out there.
that's right.
But remember that the most important journey is the one that you take into your own inner world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Keep those minds open
Mhm.
and stay curious, everyone.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy diving.
Bye, everybody.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Can profound transformation really happen in just one session of ACH?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still a little skeptical.
And you have every right to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the source material is obviously promoting ACH.
Right.
So, there's a little bit of a sales pitch in there.
Right.
But even taking that into account, there are some compelling arguments to consider.
Okay, so what are some of the potential benefits of this single session approach? Why might someone choose ACH over traditional therapy?
Well, think about it from a purely practical standpoint.
Yeah.
Fewer appointments, less time spent dwelling on the problem, potentially lower costs.
I mean, that's pretty appealing,
It is. It's a very attractive package.
especially for people who are, busy,
Absolutely.
want to get things done quickly.
In our fast-paced world, people want solutions and they want them now.
But I mean, could you really unpack years of, deep-seated patterns in just a few hours?
That's the skepticism, right? And it's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But the source material argues that because ACH goes straight to that unconscious root of the problem,
Uh-huh.
it can kind of bypass a lot of those steps involved in traditional therapy.
So it's like a shortcut
You could say that.
through the subconscious.
Yeah, like a direct line
Yeah.
to the source of the issue.
Okay, so they're not spending weeks or months just trying to figure out, like, what is the problem. They can actually start working on solutions
That's right.
in that one session.
And because it's such a structured and focused process,
Yeah.
they argue that you can cover a lot of ground in that time.
Okay, but it seems like it would put a lot of pressure on the therapist
Oh,
to
absolutely.
be able to do all that.
It requires a very skilled practitioner,
Yeah.
someone who can really guide the client through this process.
They use the phrase surgical precision in here
Oh, yes. I love that phrase.
when describing the therapist's role.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it,
It does.
of the level of skill and focus that's required.
Yeah, so it's not just like some magical, quick fix.
It's not a magic wand.
Yeah.
It's not a magic bullet.
It takes work.
It takes work from both the therapist and the client.
Yeah, they both have to be
AFB all in.
all in on this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so are there any downsides then to this single session approach?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns is whether a single session allows enough time to really thoroughly address complex issues.
Like, what if it's something that's, really deep-rooted?
Exactly. Some problems are so deeply ingrained,
Yeah.
and they're intertwined with other psychological factors
Yeah.
that they might really require a more gradual and nuanced approach.
Like, it's almost like trying to untangle a giant knot. You can't just yank on the ends.
Exactly. You can't just force it.
Yeah.
You have to be patient
And gentle.
and gentle. Work it slowly and carefully.
Yeah. And it also seems like there's a risk that the client might feel rushed
Oh, absolutely.
or overwhelmed.
It's a lot to process
Yeah.
in a single session.
To deal with all that stuff in one afternoon.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is.
But maybe ACH isn't for everybody then.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
The source material itself emphasizes that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Hey.
Careful client selection and preparation are key.
So they have to make sure that this is the right approach
Exactly. Make sure it's a good fit
for that particular person.
for the client and their needs.
And even if they do have like a breakthrough during the session,
Right.
doesn't lasting change require like ongoing effort
Absolutely.
and self-awareness?
The single session is just the beginning.
It's just the start of the journey.
It's a catalyst.
Yeah.
It jump-starts the process.
But the real work happens afterward.
the real work happens afterwards.
So they do give them tools
Oh, absolutely.
and strategies to keep going.
The guide stresses the importance of integration,
Okay.
giving the client tools and strategies to maintain those changes long-term.
So it's not like they do the session and then just send them out the door and say good luck.
No. There's follow-up.
Okay.
There's support.
They're not just abandoning them.
It's a process. It's a journey.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better about the whole single session thing.
Good.
It's not just about, cramming everything into one afternoon.
Right. It's about giving them the tools and the insights they need to move forward.
It's interesting to think about. Even if somebody is skeptical about the whole single session idea, there's something really powerful about the idea that we can access the unconscious mind
There is.
and kind of rewrite those beliefs that are holding us back.
It's incredibly empowering
Yeah.
to think that we have that power within us.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what we could achieve if we could all just tap into that
It really
a
does.
little bit more.
It highlights the incredible potential of the human mind
Yeah,
to heal, to grow, to transform.
it's really amazing.
It is.
And it reminds us that we really have to address that root cause,
Yes.
not the surface level stuff.
Not just the symptoms.
That's so important.
It is.
Well, maybe this deep dive has sparked some curiosity in some of our listeners out there.
I hope so.
Maybe you'll want to explore conversational hypnosis.
Right. Or other therapeutic approaches.
Yeah, there's lots of different things out there.
There are.
But remember that the most important journey is the one that you take into your own inner world.
Beautifully said.
So keep those minds open and stay curious, everyone.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy diving.
Bye, everybody.